Hello world, Noah here. Before we take a look at some more straightforward differences between Kotlin and Java, we're going to take a closer look at variable declarations, because pretty much any code we write will have variables or parameters, and I don't want you to keep looking at declarations and wondering what's going on. Now, Kotlin uses type inference, and what this means is that the compiler can usually figure out or infer the type of a variable based on the context in which you're using it in. And this is done at compile time, not at runtime. Because Kotlin is a statically typed language, so the type of every expression is determined and known at compile time. So let's create a new Kotlin project so we can play around with variable declarations. I'll do it a little slowly so that you can see how to create a project again, but from this point forward, I'm going to be creating projects really quickly. So, go up to File, and hit New, Project. You want to make sure you have Kotlin selected on the left, and on the right side you want to be targeting the JVM. Now, you're going to want to hit Next when you have these two fields selected, and you're going to want to name the project. I'll be naming mine Declarations. Alright, after that we're going to hit Finish, and I'm going to open this in this project, or this window rather, and we're going to create a package, call it com.noahhendrickson.declarations, and hit OK. And in this package we're going to create a Kotlin file or class, and again call it declarations. Alright, so we're going to be creating the main method. So in your file, type in main and then hit enter. And that's all. We've created the main method. Now, every variable declaration begins with val, V-A-L, or var, V-A-R. Val means the variable is immutable and can only be assigned once, and then you can't change the value. This is equivalent to final in Java. So when you have a final variable in Java, you can assign it once and then that's it. That's what val variables are. So let's start by declaring a val variable of number, or called number. Now, you'll notice that we have an error. If we hover over it, it will say this variable must either have a type annotation or be initialized. So the reason that we have the error is because at this point the compiler can't infer the type. Remember I mentioned that Kotlin uses type inference? So the compiler will look at this and say, I still don't have a clue what data type number is supposed to be. I'm going to need a little bit more of a hint. So there are two ways we can fix this. We can assign an initial value, so let's assign 25. And then you'll notice that the errors go away. And in this case, the compiler is going to make number an int, because just as in Java, the default data type for whole numbers is an integer. So it's going to say, fine, I'll make number an int. So the other way we can do this is just to tell the compiler what we want. So we can say we want an int. And that's the second way we can do it. So as you can see, we have the variable first, and then the colon, and then the data type. So this is the way that we write a variable declaration in Kotlin. We start with val or var, and then the variable name, colon, data type. So in this case, we're not explicitly assigning a value, but that's okay because we've told the compiler what data type we want, and so it's cool. Now we can do both. I mean, we could also assign an initial value here, like 25. But in Kotlin, normally you don't do it this way. There are a few times when you have to do it if you want the certain data type. And I'll show you an example of that in just a sec. But normally in Kotlin, if you assign an initial value that's good enough for the compiler to figure it out, so you'll see it written more like this than this. And remember that this is an int, so you're kind of clobbering it over the head by explicitly saying it's an int here too. So let's just go back to having it not be initialized. Now Kotlin is trying to reduce the amount of typing you have to do, so you don't need to give the compiler the same information twice. But what if we want a number that to be a short? What if we want this to be a short? So actually, let's go back. Then we would have to define it as short right here, because by default this would be an int, but now it's a short. So don't mind what I'm doing, but if we say number is type short, print line, it's a short. So if we run this, you can see printed out is it's a short. So that's just a simple check to see if it's a short. But yeah, so that's one time where you would want to explicitly tell the compiler what type you're giving it. So we're going to cover data types in more detail later, but for right now, just know if you want a short or a float or something along those lines, you're going to need to explicitly tell the compiler to do so. So let's go back to having a val number, which is an int, and so this number can only be assigned once in this block of code. So yeah. So let's assign number equal to 10. So number is equal to 10, and you can see it's fine. We didn't get a problem. But if we try to assign it again, let's say number is equal to 20, you'll see we do get an error, and it says val cannot be reassigned. So let's change val to var, and now you'll see two things happen. First of all, the error goes away, and secondly, now number is underlined. So when you change from val to var, you can see that the error goes away and now number is underlined. So the compiler will underline var variables so that you can tell at a glance which variables are mutable and which ones are immutable. If you see a variable that's underlined, it means you can change its value. If it isn't underlined, it means you may be able to assign it if it's the first time, but if it's not, then you can't change it. Alright, so continuing, we're going to create a class. Don't worry about the syntax of what I'm doing. We are going to go over classes in way more detail in a later episode. So don't worry about the syntax or what we're doing, but it's a good demonstration. So you can see we can create a class of employee, and it'll take a var name, which will be a string, and it'll take a val ID, which takes a long. Okay, so let's go over kind of what we did there. So we're creating a new class of employee, and we're creating a name. Now in a real world application, we'd probably have this as a first and a last name, but this is just for demonstration purposes. So var name string. So we're creating a property called name, and it's a string. and we're creating a property of ID. The ID is a property, and it's of type long. So var means it can be reassigned. So let's say someone gets married, their name would change, maybe. But we're saying for this application, when an employee joins, their ID is set for life, so they can't change their ID. Alright, so up here, we're going to create a val employee, and you can see IntelliJ is smart enough to know what we're thinking. And we're going to set this equal, we'll say employee 1, by the way, and we'll set this equal to an employee, and let's say this person's name is Flynn Jones, okay, and their ID is some random number that I just typed out. Okay, so you can see here we created employee 1, which is a variable, which is of type employee, and as you can see, there is no new keyword. We don't have to type new employee. You see, new is not a keyword. So Kotlin knows we're creating a new instance of employee, and you can see it takes a name and an ID. So what I want to show you guys here is that these properties, name could be changed, but ID cannot, and neither can employee 1. So if we say employee 1 dot name is equal to Flynn Smith, because he got married but then changed his last name to the wife's last name, you can see this works because employee 1 is not being reassigned, but the property name is being reassigned. So this is like saying employee 1 dot get name. Okay, so this is equivalent to this in Java, kind of. And it's even calling the getter. When we call this, it's calling the getter, but under the covers, it's just, yeah. So you can see that name can be reassigned, but if we try to reassign ID, you can see right away it does not want us to do this. It says val cannot be reassigned, which is what we got up here too. So you can see ID cannot be reassigned. And lastly, if we try to make employee 1 equal to a new employee with some couple random characters there and an ID, you can see here it's a long, oops, it's a long, that you can see val cannot be reassigned again. Okay, so I just wanted to go over that quick difference just in case you see creating classes, just to know that properties in the class, if they're declared var, can be reassigned, but not properties that are val or the instance itself. So after that, we're just going to take a look at something that could be a little confusing for new programmers. So we're going to create a new employee called employee 2, which is equal to a new employee. We'll say this person's, actually, no. We are going to just give it the type employee. So this is just like up here, but we are assigning it to employee. Alright. And then we're also going to make val number 2 is equal to, let's say, 100. Okay, now down here we're going to do an if statement. We'll say if number is greater than or equal to, So this is a font ligature, by the way. So instead of doing greater than or equal to, it converts it to this symbol right here. So we'll say if number 2 is greater than or equal to number 2, and we'll actually say less than or equal to, because we know number 2 is greater, we will run this. And we will say employee 2 is equal to employee Jane Smith and a random ID. And then else, can't type the A, guys. We're saying employee 2 is equal to a new employee with the name Mike Watson. And again, we're just creating a random assortment of numbers, and we're saying that's their ID. So as you can see here, we're assigning a val variable twice. Well, it looks like it. In reality, only one of these will be assigned, right? Because if number 2 is greater than number, this will be assigned, and if number is greater than number 2, this will be assigned. So I just wanted to show you that real quickly. Just you might see this in code and think, why is val being assigned twice? It's not. This is the same in Java, but I thought I'd show it here just because we are going over variable declarations. So yeah. Alright, that's all for today, guys. I'll see you guys in the next video, which will probably come out in a couple days' time. But I hope you enjoyed this pretty simple Kotlin tutorial. Again, as soon as we get over some of the basic stuff, we are going to start looking at more complex stuff and writing some more code. But till then, we do need to go over the basics of Kotlin first. So stick with me for the next couple videos, but after that, we'll start writing some real applications. Alright, I'll see you guys in the next video. Till then, bye.